I'll be honest, this story shook me harder than I expected. My brother thought he was about to become a father. Then he looked at the dates. And in less than 10 minutes, the future he had already started imagining fell apart right in front of him. His name is Alex, and I'm his older sister, Claire. I was 36 at the time, old enough to know that people lie in layers. Not always loudly. Not always cruelly. Sometimes they lie with tears in their eyes, soft voices, and hands pressed over their stomach like the truth is living there. That was what made this so hard. Because Mia didn't look like a liar. She looked scared. She looked fragile. And at first, my brother wanted to protect her. He called me on a Thursday evening, right when I was rinsing coffee out of my favorite mug. I remember that clearly because his voice made me stop with the water still running. "Claire," he said, "I need to tell you something." Alex never started calls like that. He was the kind of man who could joke through a flat tire, a hospital bill, or a broken heart. But that night, there was nothing easy in his voice. It sounded thin, careful, like he was trying not to step on glass. "What happened?" I asked. There was a pause. Then he said, "Mia's pregnant." For a second, I just stood there. Not because pregnancy was impossible. Not because Alex was irresponsible. But because Mia had only been in his life for 2 months. 2 months. That was barely enough time to know how someone liked their coffee, let alone raise a child with them. I dried my hands slowly and leaned against the counter. "Okay," I said. "How do you feel?" He didn't answer right away. And that silence told me more than excitement ever could. "I don't know," he finally said. That was when my stomach tightened. Because a man who believes he is becoming a father usually sounds overwhelmed, terrified, happy, or all three at once. Alex didn't sound like any of that. He sounded confused. Mia had told him earlier that afternoon. She cried when she said it. She told him she was shocked too. She said she hadn't expected this. She said it must have happened early, maybe right after they started seeing each other. And Alex believed her. Of course he did. When someone looks at you with wet eyes and says your life has changed forever, your first instinct isn't suspicion. Your first instinct is to hold the moment together before it breaks. But later, after she left, something started bothering him. Not a confession. Not a message. Not another man's name. Just one detail. One small number that kept scratching at the back of his mind. "She said she's around 8 weeks," he told me. I closed my eyes for half a second. 8 weeks. 2 months. On paper, those numbers looked close enough to pass. But life is not paper. Dates have edges. Nights have names. First times do not float around in fog forever. "How long have you actually been together?" I asked. "Almost 2 months," he said. "Almost?" Another pause. That pause was different. He had started counting. "We met 8 weeks ago," he said. "But we weren't together that first week." There it was. The crack. Small, but real. I could hear him breathing through it, trying to make the math gentler than it was. "Maybe doctors count differently," he said, almost to himself. "They do," I told him. "But Alex." "I know," he said quickly. He already knew where I was going. That was the thing about my brother. He was kind, but he wasn't stupid. Love could soften him, but it couldn't blind him completely. "She told me it had to be mine," he said. "How did she say it?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, did she sound sure, or did she need you to be sure?" He went quiet. And that silence was the first real answer. I pictured him in his apartment, sitting on the edge of that gray couch he bought after his divorce. The one he said made him feel like an adult, even though he still ate cereal over the sink. I pictured his calendar open on his phone, his thumb hovering over dates that suddenly mattered too much. Their first dinner. Their first kiss. The first night she stayed over. The weekend she said she was too tired to meet his friends. Little things can sit quietly in your memory for weeks. Then one day, they stand up and become evidence. "I need to check something," he said. His voice had changed. It wasn't panic anymore. It was focus. That scared me more. Because panic passes. Focus digs. "Don't confront her while you're emotional," I said. "I'm not emotional." "You are." "No," he said. "I'm calculating." I didn't like the way that landed. Because once a man starts calculating the beginning of a baby's life against the beginning of a relationship, innocence is already dying somewhere in the room. He called me back 40 minutes later. I didn't even say hello. Well, I asked. For a moment, all I heard was the quiet hum of his apartment. Then Alex said, very softly, "It doesn't work." My mouth went dry. Are you sure? I checked everything. Everything. The day we met. The first time we slept together. The week she said she found out. What she told me today. He stopped. I could hear him swallow. Claire, even if I stretch it, even if I give her every possible chance, it still doesn't work. That was the first time I felt real fear. Not for the baby. Not even for Mia. For him. Because Alex was standing at the edge of something that could steal years from his life if he handled it wrong. Money. Child support. Family pressure. A woman he barely knew. A child he might love before knowing the truth. And all of it was balanced on one question. One question Mia had not truly answered. Are you going to ask her? I said, yes. When? Tomorrow. His voice was calm now. Too calm. Alex, I said, listen to me carefully. Don't let her turn this into whether you love her. Don't let her make it about trust. He laughed once, but there was no humor in it. What else would she make it about? I stared out my kitchen window at the dark street. Then I said the thing neither of us wanted to say. She'll make it about anything except the timeline. And the next day, that was exactly what she did. The next morning, Alex woke up before his alarm. That happens when the truth is already in the room. It does not speak at first. It just stands there quietly, pressing against your chest, waiting for you to stop pretending you do not feel it. He lay on his back, staring at the ceiling. No messages from Mia. No missed calls. Nothing. And somehow, that silence felt worse than panic. Because the day before, she had cried in his apartment. She had told him she was pregnant. She had looked at him like they were already tied together by something bigger than both of them. But now, in the morning, there was nothing. No, are you okay? No, I barely slept. No, we need to talk. Just silence. Alex told me later that was when the fear changed into something colder. Not anger. Not yet. Just that sharp, quiet feeling you get when your heart is still trying to defend someone your mind has already started investigating. He went to work, but he barely worked. He opened emails and forgot the first line before reaching the second. He stared at spreadsheets and saw dates instead of numbers. 8 weeks. The first dinner. The first night. The weekend she canceled plans because she said she felt tired. By noon, he texted her. Nothing dramatic. Nothing accusing. Just one sentence. Can we meet tonight? I need to understand the timeline. She answered almost immediately. What do you mean? He stared at the screen. That was the first thing that bothered him. Because she knew what he meant. Of course she knew. When you tell a man he might be the father of your child, and he asks about the timeline, there is no mystery. There is only one reason he is asking. But Mia made him say it. She made him put the doubt into words. So he typed carefully. You said 7 or 8 weeks. I want to understand how that lines up. Then nothing. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Finally, her reply came through. Are you seriously questioning me right now? Alex leaned back in his chair. There it was. Not an answer. A reaction. She had turned his question into an insult before he even had the chance to ask it properly. That evening, they met at a small diner near her apartment. It was the kind of place with cracked red booths, bottomless coffee, and a television above the counter playing baseball with no sound. Alex arrived first. He sat facing the door. That was not something he usually thought about. But that night, his body understood something his heart was still resisting. Mia came in 9 minutes late. Her hair was pulled back loosely. She wore leggings, an oversized sweatshirt, and no makeup. She looked tired. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she wanted to look tired. That was the worst part. Once trust starts breaking, even ordinary things begin to look like performance. She sat across from him and kept her jacket on. You scared me, she said. Her voice was soft, almost wounded. Alex placed both hands on the table. I'm not trying to scare you, he said. I just need clarity. Mia looked at him carefully. Clarity about what? He felt something sink inside him. Again, she was making him drag the truth into the open. When exactly did you find out you were pregnant? He asked. She blinked. Fast. Almost too fast to notice. Last week, she said. What day? Her face shifted. Only for a second. But he saw it. I don't remember exactly, she said. Alex nodded slowly. You don't remember the day you found out you were pregnant? Her eyes sharpened. That's not fair. He did not move. I'm asking a normal question. No, she said. You're interrogating me. The word landed hard between them. Interrogating. That was the kind of word that made him look cruel, even while he was sitting there calmly, asking for one simple date. He took a breath. What did the doctor say? She looked toward the window. About what? How far along you are. Her fingers tightened around her napkin. 7 or 8 weeks. Same answer. Same range. No details. No proof. No calm explanation. Just the same floating number, offered like a wall. Alex felt the last part of him that wanted to believe her start to slip. Did they give you paperwork? He asked. Mia looked back at him. And for the first time that night, the softness left her face completely. Why would you need to see paperwork? Because the dates don't make sense. There. He had finally said it. The diner kept moving around them. Coffee poured. Silverware clinked. Someone laughed near the counter. But at their table, everything went still. Mia stared at him like he had slapped her. You think I'm lying? Alex did not answer quickly. Because that was the trap. If he said yes, she could cry. If he said no, she could keep hiding. So he said the only thing that was true. I think the timeline is wrong. Her eyes filled with tears almost instantly. But Alex noticed something this time. The tears came before the explanation. You don't trust me, she whispered. He looked down for a moment, then back at her. I trusted you yesterday, he said. Then I counted. Mia's mouth parted slightly. That line changed the air. Because numbers do not care how softly someone cries. She sat back, folding her arms across her stomach. You're being cold, she said. No, he replied. I'm trying not to be stupid. That was the first time he sounded hurt. Not angry. Hurt. And I think that scared her more. Because anger can be redirected. Hurt listens differently. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Alex said, very quietly, I want a paternity test. Mia froze. Not flinched. Not hesitated. Froze. And in that single frozen second, my brother got an answer she had not meant to give. Mia stayed quiet for several seconds, and in that silence, Alex felt the entire conversation shift into something heavier than suspicion. She did not deny it immediately, which was what he had expected. She did not reach across the table, take his hand, and tell him she understood why he was scared. She just sat there with her fingers folded tightly over her stomach, staring at him like he had become someone dangerous. That was the moment Alex later told me he would never forget. Not because she cried, not because she looked hurt, but because for the first time since she had told him about the pregnancy, she looked less like a frightened woman and more like someone trying to decide what story to tell next. A paternity test, she asked, and her voice was quieter now, almost too controlled. Alex nodded, keeping both hands flat on the table because he did not trust himself to move naturally. Yes, I think that's the only fair thing to do. Mia let out a small laugh, but it had no warmth in it. Fair to who, Alex? To everyone, he said. To me, to you, and to the baby. The word baby changed her face for a second. It was small, almost invisible, but Alex caught it. Her mouth tightened, and her eyes dropped toward the table before she forced herself to look back at him. You're really going to sit here and accuse me? She asked. I'm not accusing you, he said carefully. I'm saying the dates don't make sense, and I need to know the truth before I build my whole life around this. That sentence hurt him to say. Because part of him still wanted this to be a misunderstanding. Part of him still wanted Mia to soften, breathe out, and explain everything in a way that made him feel ashamed for doubting her. He wanted the relief of being wrong, because being wrong would have meant she was still the woman he thought he knew. But Mia did not explain. She leaned back in the booth and crossed her arms, suddenly looking colder than she had all evening. "This is about trust," she said. "No," Alex replied, and his voice stayed calm even though his chest was tightening. "This is about facts." Her eyes narrowed. "That's a horrible thing to say to a pregnant woman." He looked at her for a long moment because that line almost worked. It touched the exact part of him that still wanted to protect her. It made him feel cruel for asking a question any man in his position would have needed answered. But then he remembered the calendar. He remembered counting the days 3 different ways, trying to make them fit because he wanted to believe her. He remembered how she could not name the day she found out. He remembered how every direct question made her more defensive. "I'm not trying to hurt you," he said. "But I'm not going to ignore something this serious just because asking makes you uncomfortable." Mia's eyes filled with tears again, but this time Alex did not lean forward. That was new for him. The old Alex would have apologized first and questioned himself later. He would have softened his voice, reached for her hand, and made her pain more important than his own instinct. But something inside him had changed since the night before, and once he saw the shape of the lie, he could not force himself to unsee it. "I'm not doing a test," she said. Alex became very still. "Why not?" "Because I shouldn't have to prove myself to you." He nodded slowly, though nothing about her answer comforted him. "If the baby is mine, the test proves that." "No," she said quickly. "It proves you never trusted me." He looked at her across the table, at the woman who had entered his life like a beginning and now sat in front of him like a warning. "That's not true," he said. "Refusing the test proves you want me to accept responsibility without knowing the truth." For the first time, Mia looked afraid. Not sad. Not offended. Afraid. It crossed her face so quickly that someone else might have missed it, but Alex was watching every detail now. Her breathing changed. Her fingers tightened. Her eyes flicked toward the door, then back to him, as if she were measuring how much control she still had left. "Alex," she said, and this time his name sounded different. It did not sound wounded. It sounded urgent. He waited. She looked down at the table, and when she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "You don't understand what happened before you." Alex felt the air leave his lungs. Because that was not a denial. That was not an explanation. That was the first crack in the story she had been trying to hold together. Alex stared at her across the table, trying to understand whether Mia had just started confessing or whether she had only opened another door into another lie. For a few seconds, neither of them moved. The diner kept humming around them, with plates sliding across counters and waitresses calling out orders, but their booth felt sealed off from the rest of the world. Mia had lowered her eyes, and Alex could see her hands trembling against the edge of the table. "What happened before me?" he asked. Mia swallowed, then looked toward the window like she hated the reflection staring back at her. "There was someone," she said, and the words came out carefully, like she was placing broken glass on the table. Alex felt his jaw tighten, but he forced himself not to react too quickly. He had expected something like this. He had done the math enough times to know there had to be someone, but hearing it from her mouth still made his stomach turn. "Before we met?" he asked. Mia nodded once, but there was something incomplete in the movement. "Before we met? Or while we were seeing each other?" Alex asked, and this time his voice was sharper than he intended. She closed her eyes, and that was enough. The answer was already there. Alex leaned back slowly, because suddenly the booth felt too small for his body. He thought about every night she had leaned against him on his couch, every morning she had kissed him goodbye, and every soft little promise she had made while something else was happening behind the scenes. "How long?" he asked. Mia wiped under one eye with her thumb, though no tear had actually fallen yet. "It wasn't like that," she said. Alex gave a quiet, bitter laugh. "That is exactly what people say when it was like that." Her face tightened, and for the first time she looked ashamed instead of defensive. "He was complicated," she whispered. "Complicated how?" She hesitated long enough for Alex to understand that whatever came next would be worse. "He's married," she said. For a moment, Alex did not speak, because the words had to settle before they could hurt properly. Married. The man who might be the father of this baby was married, and Mia had walked into Alex's life carrying not only a pregnancy, but someone else's secret. That was the moment my brother later described to me as pure disbelief. Not heartbreak yet, not anger yet, just disbelief, thick and cold, spreading through him so fast he could barely think. "You were seeing a married man," he said, "and then you told me the baby was mine." Mia looked up quickly. "I didn't know for sure, but you knew it was possible." She pressed her lips together. "Mia," he said, his voice low now, "you knew it was possible." Her silence answered before she did. "Yes," she said finally. Alex looked away, because if he kept staring at her, he thought he might say something he could never take back. He watched an older couple pay their check near the register, laughing about something ordinary, and for one strange second, he envied them so badly it almost made him sick. Then Mia said the part that made everything feel unreal. "He can't find out." Alex turned back to her slowly. "What?" "He can't find out," she repeated, and now there was panic in her voice. "His wife would destroy him, and he said if anyone found out, he'd make sure I got nothing." Alex blinked at her. Nothing. That word sat between them with an ugly kind of honesty. For the first time, this was not only about fear or shame. It was about money. It was about protection, reputation, and a man who had apparently promised Mia something before deciding she was disposable. Alex felt something inside him go cold. "So you picked me," he said. Mia shook her head too fast. "No, Alex, it wasn't like that. You picked me because I was single, decent, and stupid enough to believe you." "You're not stupid," she said, and her voice broke on the last word. "But you needed me to be." That sentence made her flinch. Alex stood up halfway, then sat back down because his legs felt unsteady. He could not believe this was happening in a diner, under cheap yellow lights, while a baseball game played silently above the counter. It felt too ordinary for something this insane. "This is just crazy," he said quietly, almost to himself. Mia leaned forward, and now the fear in her face looked real. "I was scared," she said. "I didn't know what to do, and you were the only person who felt safe." Alex stared at her, because some part of that might have been true, and that made it worse. She might really have been scared. She might really have felt cornered. But fear did not erase what she had tried to do to him. "You were going to let me raise another man's child," he said. "I thought maybe it could still be yours." "No," Alex said, and his voice finally hardened. "You hoped I would not ask." Mia looked down again. There it was. The truth, sitting naked between them. Alex took his wallet from the table and pulled out cash for the coffee neither of them had touched. His hands were steady now, which surprised him. Maybe shock had a mercy of its own, giving the body something cold enough to stand on. "Alex," she said, reaching for his wrist. He moved his hand away before she touched him. That small movement hurt her more than anything he had said. "I need you to listen to me," she whispered. "I did listen," he said. "That's why I'm leaving." Mia's eyes filled again, but this time he felt nothing move toward her. No instinct to comfort. No impulse to fix. Just a clean, terrible distance opening inside him. He stepped away from the booth. Then she said, "He already knows about you." Alex stopped. The diner noise seemed to drop out all at once. Slowly, he turned back around. Mia looked terrified now. Not guilty. Terrified. "What did you just say?" he asked. She gripped the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles whitened. "He knows your name," she whispered. "And Alex, he's not going to let this stay quiet." Alex did not leave the diner right away after Mia said that man knew his name. For a moment, he simply stood there beside the booth, with his jacket half in his hand and his mind trying to catch up to what she had just admitted. Until then, this had felt ugly, humiliating, and unfair, but still somehow private. It was a betrayal between two people, trapped inside a diner booth under yellow lights. Now there was someone else. A married man. A man with money, a wife, a reputation, and enough confidence to threaten a pregnant woman while hiding behind his own family. Alex sat back down slowly, not because he wanted to continue the conversation, but because walking away without understanding the danger suddenly felt reckless. "What do you mean he knows my name?" he asked. Mia looked like she regretted saying it the second it left her mouth. She pressed her fingers against her lips, then lowered her hand and stared at the table like the pattern in the wood could save her. He asked who you were, she said. I told him you were someone I had been seeing. Alex's face hardened. Someone you had been seeing? I didn't know how else to explain it. You mean you didn't know how to explain that you were trying to make me responsible for his problem? Mia flinched, but this time Alex did not feel guilty for saying it. Something had changed in him after the word married. The pain was still there, but now it had structure. It had a face somewhere outside that diner, and that made it easier to stay cold. What's his name? Alex asked. Mia shook her head quickly. I can't tell you that. Alex almost laughed because the answer was so ridiculous it felt unreal. You told him my name, but you won't tell me his? He's not like you, she whispered. That sentence made Alex go still. Not because it scared him exactly, but because it confirmed something worse. Mia was not only hiding the truth because she was ashamed. She was hiding it because she was afraid of someone who had already decided Alex could become useful. What does that mean? He asked. Mia looked around the diner as if the man might appear from behind the counter. He has a lot to lose, Alex. A lot. His wife's family is connected to his business, and if this gets out, everything falls apart for him. Alex stared at her, stunned by the ugliness of it. So he gets to protect his life, and I'm supposed to sacrifice mine? No, Mia said, but her voice broke before she could make it sound convincing. I didn't think it would go this far. You told me you were pregnant. I was scared. You told me it was mine. I wanted it to be. That answer hit him harder than another lie would have, because it sounded almost honest. Not good, not fair, not forgivable, but honest in the worst possible way. Mia had not built the lie only because she hated him or wanted money from him. She had built it because his life looked safer than the one she had destroyed for herself. Alex rubbed a hand over his jaw and looked away. He thought about the version of his future she had almost handed him. Doctor visits, baby names, rent changes, family announcements. Maybe a rushed marriage, because that was what decent men were sometimes pressured into when everyone was watching. Then he imagined finding out months later, or years later, after loving a child, after paying for everything, after becoming the man everyone expected him to be. The thought made him feel physically sick. I need you to text me his name, he said. Mia shook her head again. Alex, please don't make me do that. I'm not asking for your permission anymore. Her eyes filled with tears. If he finds out I told you, he'll ruin me. Alex leaned forward, keeping his voice low enough that no one around them could hear. Mia, you tried to ruin me quietly. So forgive me if I don't feel protected by your fear. She looked down, and for the first time that night, she seemed to understand that whatever softness he once had for her was gone. Not because he was cruel, because she had spent it. His phone buzzed on the table before either of them spoke again. Alex glanced down, expecting a work notification or a message from me. Instead, he saw an unknown number with a local area code. The message had only one line. Walk away from her and forget what you think you know. Alex stared at the screen while the blood drained from his face. Mia saw his expression and leaned forward. What is it? She asked. He turned the phone toward her. The second she read the message, she stopped breathing for half a second. That was all the confirmation he needed. It's him, Alex said. Mia did not answer, and her silence became heavier than any yes could have been. Alex stood up again, this time with no hesitation. He took a screenshot of the message, slipped his phone into his pocket, and left enough cash on the table to cover the bill. Alex, Mia whispered. He looked at her one last time. Do not contact me unless you're ready to tell the truth in writing. Then he walked out into the parking lot, where the evening air felt colder than it should have. He had barely reached his car when another message came through. This one made his hands stop on the door handle. I know where you work. Alex stood beside his car, staring at that second message until the words stopped looking like words. I know where you work. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. That was what made it feel worse. The threat came dressed like a simple fact, like this man was calmly reminding Alex that he had already stepped into his life. For a few seconds, Alex did nothing. Then he took another screenshot. That was important, he told me later, because the old version of him might have called the number immediately. He might have demanded answers, cursed, challenged the man, or made the kind of emotional mistake that gives dangerous people exactly what they want. But this version of Alex was different now. He had already seen how fast emotion could be used against him. So he got into his car, locked the doors, and called me. When I answered, I could hear traffic behind him and something tight in his breathing. Claire, he said, this is worse than I thought. He sent me the screenshots while we were still on the phone. I opened them at my kitchen table, and the second I read them, my hands went cold. Do not reply, I said. I wasn't going to. Good. Drive somewhere public. Not home yet. He was silent for a moment, and then he said, You think he'd actually show up? I think men who send messages like that want you wondering exactly that. Alex exhaled slowly. That was the part people do not understand about threats. Sometimes they are not meant to become action. Sometimes they are meant to take over your imagination, so fear starts doing the work for them. He drove to a grocery store parking lot with bright lights and security cameras. Then he sat there with his engine running, watching every car that passed behind him. Mia called twice. He did not answer. Then she texted him. Please don't make this bigger. That message bothered him more than the others. Not because it was cruel, because it was revealing. She was not asking if he was safe. She was not apologizing for giving his name to a married man who was now threatening him. She was still trying to manage the size of the truth, like the problem was not what she had done, but how visible it might become. Alex wrote one response. Send his name. Everything else goes through text. For 3 minutes, nothing happened. Then Mia replied, I can't. Alex almost threw the phone onto the passenger seat. Instead, he opened a note and wrote down every detail he remembered. The diner, the pregnancy claim, the refusal of the test, the married man, the threat, the second message. He was building a record now, not because he wanted revenge, because he finally understood that people like Mia survived confusion. They survived half-truths, emotional fog, and conversations nobody could prove later. He was done living inside anything foggy. The next morning, Alex called his manager before work and explained enough to be taken seriously without turning his life into office gossip. He said someone connected to a personal situation had sent a threat, and he wanted security aware in case a stranger showed up. His manager did not ask for the ugly details. She just said, send me the number and the screenshots. That sentence nearly broke him. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was simple. Someone believed him without making him perform his pain. By noon, Mia finally sent the name. Daniel Mercer. Alex stared at it for a long time. The name looked ordinary. That almost made him angrier. This man was not a shadow anymore. He was not some faceless threat hiding behind a blocked number. He was a person with a business profile, a smiling headshot, and a wife who appeared beside him in charity event photos. Alex searched once, then stopped. He did not want to spiral. But he saw enough. Daniel owned a small construction consulting firm outside Raleigh. His wife's family had money in commercial real estate. There were photos of them at fundraisers, holiday events, ribbon cuttings, all polished and smiling like their life had never touched anything dirty. And somewhere behind that polished life was Mia, pregnant, scared, and trying to hand Alex the consequences. That evening, Alex forwarded everything to a lawyer a friend recommended. Not to start a war, but to understand what protected him before someone else tried to trap him. The lawyer's advice was clear. Save every message. Do not meet Mia alone. Do not speak to Daniel. Do not acknowledge paternity without legal confirmation. If threats continued, file a report. For the first time in days, Alex felt the ground under him again. Thin ground, maybe, but ground. Then, just before midnight, Mia sent one more message. This one was different. I lied because Daniel said he would destroy me if I named him. But there's something else you need to know. Alex read it twice, then called me immediately. What else could there possibly be, he asked. I did not answer right away, because by then I had learned the worst truths rarely arrive alone. A minute later, Mia sent a photo. It was not of her. It was not of Daniel. It was a screenshot of a bank transfer from 2 weeks before she told Alex she was pregnant. The memo line had only 4 words. Take care of it. The screenshot sat on Alex's phone like a piece of evidence from someone else's life. For a long moment, neither of us said anything, because there are some messages that do not need explaining right away. You just look at them, and your body understands the danger before your mind finishes reading. The bank transfer had Daniel's name on it. $5,000. Sent to Mia 2 weeks before she told Alex about the pregnancy. And under the memo line, those 4 words sat there like a quiet threat. Take care of it. Alex read it again while I stayed on the phone, listening to his breathing change. That doesn't prove what he meant, he said, but his voice already knew better. No, I said carefully. But it proves he paid her before she came to you. Alex was quiet. I could imagine him sitting on the edge of his bed, apartment dark around him, phone glowing in his hand. That room had seen him confused, hurt, and angry in the past few days, but this was different. This was the moment he realized he had not just been lied to by Mia. He had been placed inside someone else's cleanup plan. Mia sent another message before he could respond. I didn't use it. I couldn't. Then he told me if I kept it, I had to make sure it never touched him. Alex stared at the screen, and I felt my stomach turn even through the distance between us. Because that was the shape of it now. Daniel had not only wanted the problem to disappear. When it didn't, he wanted it redirected. Somewhere quieter. Somewhere safer. Somewhere with a decent man who could be pressured into doing the honorable thing before he understood the truth. And Alex had almost been that man. He typed slowly, then read the message out loud before sending it. Do not call me. Put everything in writing. I told him that was smart. He sent it. A few seconds later, the typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Mia was struggling with what to say, and for once, Alex did not help her. He did not fill the silence. He did not soften the moment. He just waited. Finally, her reply came through. I thought if you believed it was yours, the baby would have a real chance. Alex closed his eyes. That sentence hurt him more than the threats. Because it was selfish and desperate at the same time. It was cruel, but not empty. She had wrapped a lie around something that sounded almost noble, and that made it uglier. She had not chosen Alex because she loved him. She chose him because he looked like safety. He answered with one line. You don't get to steal someone's life and call it protection. Mia did not respond for almost 20 minutes. During that time, Alex forwarded the screenshot to the lawyer, along with every message Daniel had sent. Then he wrote a short statement while the details were still clear. Dates, times, places, exact words. Nothing emotional. Nothing dramatic. Just the record. By morning, he had barely slept. I drove over with coffee because I did not want him alone with his thoughts. When he opened the door, he looked older than he had 3 days before. Not broken, exactly. More like someone who had been forced to grow a harder layer overnight. His kitchen counter was covered with printed screenshots, handwritten notes, and a legal pad full of dates. It almost looked obsessive until you understood what he was protecting himself from. This is insane, I said quietly. Alex leaned against the counter and rubbed his eyes. Yeah, he said. But at least now it makes sense. That line stayed with me. Because sometimes the truth does not bring peace at first. Sometimes it only brings structure to the pain. It tells you where the knife came from, who held it, and why the wound feels the way it does. Around noon, his lawyer called. I sat across from him while he put the phone on speaker, and for the first time since this began, someone outside our family said the words Alex needed to hear. Do not meet either of them alone. Do not discuss money. Do not acknowledge any responsibility. If she continues claiming you are the father, we push for legal paternity testing through proper channels. Alex nodded, even though the lawyer could not see him. Then the lawyer added something that made the room go quiet. And if Daniel keeps threatening you, we document it as harassment. Harassment. The word sounded clean. Official. Real. It pulled the situation out of the emotional swamp Mia had created and placed it somewhere with rules. After the call, Alex looked at me and let out a tired breath. I almost apologized to her in that diner, he said. I looked at him. For asking questions? He nodded. That's what scares me. And I understood exactly what he meant. The danger had not only been Mia's lie. It had been how close he came to helping her carry it. One wrong apology, one emotional promise, one moment of guilt, and he might have walked straight into a life built for him by two people trying to save themselves. That evening, Mia finally sent one last message. It was longer than the others, and Alex read it standing by the window while the sun was going down behind the apartment buildings across the street. I'm going to tell Daniel's wife. I can't keep doing this. But if I do it, he'll come after both of us. Alex did not reply right away. He handed me the phone, and I read the message twice. Then another text came in from Daniel's number. This one was not vague. This one was not polished. I warned you. Now you both pay. Alex read Daniel's message twice, but this time fear did not take the wheel. Maybe it should have. Maybe any normal person would have panicked after seeing a threat that direct. But by then, something inside him had already hardened into a kind of calm he had never needed before. He did not call Daniel. He did not text Mia. He did not try to prove he was brave. He simply took another screenshot, forwarded it to the lawyer, and said the first clear thing he had said all week. I'm done being alone with their mess. The next morning, everything became official. His lawyer helped him file a report about the threats, and Alex sent every message, every screenshot, and every date he had written down. The officer who took the statement did not look shocked, which somehow made the whole thing feel worse. Like this kind of ugliness was not rare. Like decent people were dragged into other people's secrets every single day. After that, the lawyer sent Daniel a formal notice. No contact. No threats. No communication through Mia. No attempt to involve Alex in any pregnancy claim without legal paternity testing. It was the kind of letter that did not scream, but still changed the room. It took the entire situation out of whispers, tears, and late-night messages and put it under lights where everyone could see the shape of it. Daniel went silent after that. Not because he became decent. Because men like him hate witnesses. Mia did not disappear as quickly. 2 days later, she sent Alex a long message. She said she was sorry. She said she had been terrified. She said Daniel had made promises, then turned cruel when she refused to make the pregnancy vanish. She said she had looked at Alex and seen the only safe future left. Alex read the message in my living room while I sat across from him with a cup of coffee gone cold between my hands. When he finished, he did not look angry. He looked tired. That's the worst part, he said quietly. I believe she was scared. I nodded because I did too. Fear can be real, even when the choices are wrong. Pain can be real, even when it gets used as a weapon. That was what made this so hard to carry. Mia had not been some cartoon villain with an evil plan. She was a cornered woman who tried to escape by pushing another person into the corner instead. And that person had been my brother. Alex typed one reply and showed it to me before sending. I'm sorry you were scared, but you tried to make me pay for someone else's life. Do not contact me again unless it is through legal channels. He stared at the message for a while. Then he sent it. 3 weeks later, the paternity test happened through the proper process. Alex did not see Mia that day. He did not want to. Everything went through the lawyer, which was exactly how it needed to be. No booth in a diner. No tears across a table. No soft voice asking him why he did not trust her. Just paperwork. Just science. Just truth. The results came back on a Friday afternoon. I was at work when Alex called me, and the second I saw his name on the screen, I knew. I stepped into the hallway before answering, already holding my breath. It's not mine, he said. There was no triumph in his voice. That surprised me, even though it should not have. Truth does not always feel like victory when it confirms how close you came to being destroyed. I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes. How do you feel? I asked. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, free. That word stayed with me. Not happy. Not healed. Free. Because sometimes freedom does not arrive with music or celebration. Sometimes it arrives as one sentence in a legal email, telling you that the life someone tried to hand you is never yours to carry. Daniel's wife found out eventually. I never learned exactly how. Maybe Mia told her. Maybe the lawyer's letter made its way into the wrong hands. Maybe secrets that large simply start leaking once enough people stop protecting them. All I know is that Daniel's smiling business photos disappeared from his company website within a month. His wife removed every picture of them together from her social media. Mia never told Alex what happened after that, and for once, he did not try to find out. That was growth too. A year earlier, he would have needed every answer. He would have chased the ending until it exhausted him. But now he understood something painful and important. Some stories are not yours just because you were almost trapped inside them. A month after the results, we met for breakfast at the same little place we always went. Alex looked more like himself again, but not exactly the same. There was a steadiness in him now, a quiet boundary that had not been there before. Halfway through his coffee, he looked out the window and said, "I used to think trusting someone meant not asking questions." I waited. He smiled faintly, but it did not reach his eyes. Now I think real trust survives questions. I did not say anything for a second because there was nothing to add. He had learned it the brutal way, but he had learned it. A few weeks later, he saw Mia one last time. It was at a pharmacy on a rainy Sunday afternoon. She was standing near the prenatal vitamins, one hand resting gently on her stomach. Alex said she looked smaller somehow, not physically, but emotionally. Like the lie had taken pieces from her too. She saw him. For one long second, neither of them moved. Then Mia gave him the smallest nod. Not a plea, not an apology, just an acknowledgement. Alex nodded back and walked past her without stopping. That night, he told me he felt sad for her. Not in a way that pulled him back. Not in a way that made him doubt himself. Just sad, the way you feel when you see someone standing in the wreckage of choices they can no longer undo. The last thing he ever received from her came 3 months later. It was a single message from an unknown number. She was born healthy. No name, no photo, no request. Alex showed it to me, then sat with the phone in his hand for almost a minute. "Are you going to answer?" I asked. He looked at the message, then locked the screen. "No," he said. "That part of the story isn't mine." And that was the end, at least for us. Not dramatic. Not perfectly clean. Just an ending with one small shadow left behind. Because somewhere out there, a little girl was born into a truth that had almost been buried under money, fear, and lies. And my brother, because he trusted one quiet feeling in his gut, did not become the man forced to carry it.